Welcome back to TalkTickers, ready to dive deep into another earnings call. Always ready. This time we're lacing up, taking a look at Skechers Q3 2024, seeing what they had to say.
Skechers, yeah, interesting one.
Yeah, they're the, third largest footwear brand in the U.S.? Something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. They've been around forever, but it seems like lately they're really having a moment.
Right, and this earnings call kind of shows why.
Definitely. They hit a new sales record, $2.35 billion.
Wow.
Which is, let me check, a 16% jump year over year.
So, is that all those comfy shoes everyone's wearing?
I mean, that's got to be a big part of it, right? Their whole thing is comfort technology.
Yeah, what are they called? The hands-free slip-ins?
Those, yeah, and the arch fit, all that kind of stuff.
Seems like everyone I know has a pair.
Well, and it's not just casual shoes anymore. They're getting into performance footwear, too.
Oh, right. We'll get to that later. But first, those sales numbers. You said wholesale was a big driver.
Huge. Up 21% globally.
Okay, so not just a U.S. thing.
Yep. Both domestic and international markets are strong.
Although, speaking of international, I did notice China's a bit of a mixed bag this time.
Yeah, China was down a bit, 5.7%.
That's not insignificant. What's going on there?
Well, Skechers is saying it's due to economic pressure, consumer spending being down a bit.
So, broader economic trends, not necessarily Skechers specific.
Right. It's affecting a lot of industries in China right now.
So, how are they viewing this? Like a blip on the radar or a sign of trouble?
They seem pretty confident it's temporary.
Okay, good, because they've got a long history in China, right?
Yeah, they've been there for years, built a strong team, so they're not panicking.
That's good to hear, and they're probably adjusting strategies to navigate this, right?
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform in the coming quarters.
Definitely, but hey, while China might be cooling down, India is on fire.
Oh, yeah. Indy was amazing. 24% jump in sales.
This got to be exciting for them.
Huge win, and it really shows the resilience of their strategy.
And I think their local team in India deserves a lot of credit too, right?
Totally. They've been doing phenomenal work.
Especially with those regulatory hurdles they've been facing around imports.
Right. It hasn't been easy, but they're navigating it well.
And on top of that, consumer demand in India is strong, so that helps.
Absolutely. And it seems like their comfort technology is really resonating with Indian customers.
Which makes sense, right? Comfort is kind of universal.
It is. And they're also smartly tapping into India's love for specific sports.
Oh, yeah, like cricket and pickleball, right? Not your typical Skechers sports.
Exactly. But it shows they understand the local market and what people want.
And that's got to be key for any brand going global.
For sure. You got to tailor your approach.
All right, so we've got this booming wholesale business, a strategic approach internationally, but what about direct-to-consumer?
Good point. That's always a key indicator of brand health.
Right, so how are they doing there?
Direct-to-consumer sales were up 9.6%.
Nice. And is that mostly international or domestic?
International markets are actually leading the charge there.
Interesting. And I imagine the global shift towards e-commerce is playing a role.
Absolutely. More and more people are comfortable buying shoes online these days.
And Skechers is definitely not ignoring that trend. They're actively expanding their global store network, too.
Yep. They've got over 5,300 stores worldwide now, with 68 new company-owned stores opening this past quarter.
That's a lot of new stores.
It shows they're serious about making their products accessible to everyone, both online and in person.
And speaking of access, their marketing efforts are pretty impressive, too.
Oh, yeah. Their marketing game is strong.
They've got quite the roster of brand ambassadors.
Right. From Snoop Dogg to Joel Embiid to Howie Mandel, it's a diverse group.
It really is, and it helps them reach a much wider audience.
Exactly. And it reinforces that message of comfort and style that they're known for.
And, of course, we can't forget that ambitious goal they've set for themselves, $10 billion in sales by 2026.
Wow, that's a bold target.
It is. So how do they plan on reaching that?
They're focusing their investments in 3 key areas: product development, demand creation, and global expansion.
Okay, so a 3-pronged approach to growth.
Makes sense, but there's one thing from the earnings call that caught my eye, that 24% increase in inventory.
Oh, yeah. That did seem a bit high. Should investors be worried?
Well, it's important to look at the context.
Right, so what's the context?
Well, remember that sales dip we talked about in China?
Yeah.
That's led to higher inventory levels there, simply because they've got more product on hand than they were able to sell.
Okay, so that explains part of the increase. What about the rest?
The other factor is related to in-transit inventory, particularly in Europe.
Okay, so like stuff that's stuck in shipping or something.
Kind of. Some supply chain issues earlier this year resulted in more inventory on the move than usual.
Oh, right, those supply chain headaches everyone's been dealing with.
Exactly. So it seems like it's more of a timing and logistics issue than a sign of waning demand.
That's good to hear. And lastly, let's not forget the bottom line. What were their earnings per share?
Skechers reported record earnings per share of $1.26, a 35% increase.
Wow, that's impressive.
Definitely a sign of a company in a strong financial position.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Record-breaking sales, strategic moves in key markets, a focus on direct-to-consumer growth, and a commitment to expansion.
They're definitely a company in a growth phase, but they're also not ignoring the challenges.
Right, they're actively managing supply chain issues and keeping a close eye on those evolving consumer trends.
Absolutely. So can they maintain this momentum? Can they reach that ambitious $10 billion sales goal?
Well, that's the big question. And to answer that, we need to take a closer look at their strategic initiatives and the potential challenges that lie ahead.
Sounds like a good topic for our next segment.
It does, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, so we're back. And before the break, we were talking about Skechers' ambitious goals, that $10 billion target by 2026.
Yeah, big goals. And to get there, they're really pushing into athletic footwear, which is interesting.
It is, because that's a market dominated by the big names, Nike, Adidas, that kind of crowd.
Right. It's a tough space to break into.
So do you think Skechers has what it takes to actually compete there?
Well, they're certainly making moves like integrating their comfort tech into performance shoes.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Leverage their strength, right?
Exactly. And they're not just dipping their toes in. They've got running shoes, golf shoes, even pickleball shoes.
Pickleball shoes, huh?
Yeah, it's a thing, and it's growing fast.
I guess so, and they're signing some big-name athletes, too.
Oh, yeah. They've got Joel Embiid, Harry Kane, even sponsoring youth basketball in India.
Yeah, and Embiid winning gold in those Skechers at the Paris Games. That was a big moment.
Huge. Put them on the map for performance footwear.
Definitely. So it seems like they're serious about this.
Right.
But can they really go head-to-head with Nike and Adidas?
Well, they do have some advantages.
Like what?
First, that focus on comfort, it sets them apart.
Right, because athletes are looking for comfort, too, not just performance.
Exactly. It's not just about cushioning anymore. It's biomechanics, arch support, all that stuff.
Yeah, those little details can make a big difference.
Huge difference. And Skechers is investing heavily in R&D to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so comfort and innovation. What else?
Well, their pricing is another advantage.
Right, Skechers is generally more affordable than some of those premium brands.
Exactly. And that can be a big draw, especially as athletic footwear prices keep going up.
It makes sense. So while it's too early to say if they'll dethrone Nike or Adidas, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Agreed. They're shaking things up, and that's always good for the market.
It is. Competition breeds innovation, right?
Absolutely. But, this earnings call also highlighted some broader trends affecting the whole footwear industry.
Oh, yeah, good point. So beyond just Skechers, what should our listeners be paying attention to?
Well, the rise of e-commerce is continuing.
Right. We talked about that with Skechers, but it's industry-wide.
Yep. More and more people are buying shoes online, so brands need a strong online presence.
Yeah, brick-and-mortar stores aren't going away, but you got to have both.
Exactly. And this shift online also demands more supply chain agility.
Right, because you got to get those shoes to people quickly and efficiently.
And be able to adapt to changes in demand like we saw with Skechers' inventory challenges.
Yeah, those supply chain headaches can really throw a wrench in things.
They can, so being prepared for the unexpected is crucial in today's retail environment.
Absolutely. And another trend we're seeing is a growing demand for sustainability.
Oh yeah, that's becoming huge.
Consumers are more conscious of the environmental impact of their purchases.
Right. They want to know that brands are using ethical and sustainable practices.
And Skechers, they haven't been as vocal about sustainability as some other brands, have they?
Not really. It's something they'll need to address more proactively moving forward.
Yeah, it's not a niche concern anymore. It's mainstream.
Totally. Brands that ignore it are going to fall behind.
So, stepping back from this specific earnings call, what's the big takeaway for you?
I think it's clear the footwear market is undergoing a major transformation.
Right. E-commerce, sustainability, changing consumer preferences. It's all reshaping the industry.
And Skechers is right there in the mix, innovating and adapting to stay ahead of the curve.
They're not just riding the wave, they're trying to shape it.
Exactly. And that makes them a company to watch.
It does. And speaking of watching, we've got to keep an eye on that comfort revolution they're leading.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
It is, and it's one we're going to dive into right after this quick break. It's back to comfort we go. Right to those roots.
Yeah, it's what they're known for, but they're really pushing the boundaries of what comfort can be.
Right, like for so long, it was comfy shoes for every day, and then your separate performance shoes.
And those performance shoes weren't always so comfy, let's be honest.
Definitely not. It was kind of like you had to suffer for your sport. Yeah.
Exactly, like pain was part of the deal.
But Skechers is changing that, saying, hey, why not have both? Why can't a running shoe feel like a slipper?
And they're not just saying it, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is, putting the tech into the shoes, getting them on athletes.
And it seems to be working.
It does. So could this be like the start of a new era where athletes don't have to choose between comfort and performance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Are we seeing a shift in expectations?
Maybe. And Skechers is leading the charge.
They've always been good at spotting trends and then capitalizing on them.
Like with that whole comfort technology boom, they saw it coming.
Exactly. They recognized that people wanted more comfort, and they delivered.
And now they're doing the same thing with athletic footwear.
Betting that athletes want that comfort too, without sacrificing performance.
It's a smart bet, I think. They're onto something.
Yeah, and they're already making noise with those big athlete endorsements and expanding into new sports.
Definitely a company to watch, so listeners, here's something to think about. Could this be the future of footwear? Could Skechers' comfort revolution change everything? Let us know what you think.
Always love hearing your thoughts, and with that, I think we've covered Skechers pretty thoroughly.
We have lots of exciting stuff happening over there.
Definitely one to keep on your radar.
All right, that's going to do it for this deep dive into Skechers' Q3 earnings call.
Hope you enjoyed it.
As always, thanks for tuning in to TalkTickers.
Keep those tickers talking.